Today's race passed the eyeball test with flying colors. Any new fan who tuned in today saw very close racing, a couple wrecks, some playoff drama, and a very tight finish. But underneath that gorgeous exterior was yet another frustrating battle with dirty air and nearly zero off throttle time. So a lot of ups and downs out at Michigan today. That's what we're going to talk about. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric and welcome to Out of the Groove Michigan Race Review Edition. Second to last race of the NASCAR Cup Series regular season. We've got a lot to get to today, but first, this episode is sponsored by Stud Buddy. That's right, Stud Buddy, the world's simplest stud finder. The Stud Buddy uses powerful magnets, no batteries required. It works with all drywall construction and detects nails and screws in wood and metal studs. I was recently decorating my living room and check it out, it hangs on the wall hands-free when a stud is located. With the help of the Stud Buddy and the Stud Buddy Plus, it was super easy to hang this super heavy NASCAR Cup Series windshield. Stud Buddy, the world's simplest stud finder. Learn more about Stud Buddy down in the description below. Thank you to Stud Buddy for sponsoring Out of the Groove. I have thoughts about this race. We're going to talk about the top finishers. We'll talk about a couple of the more dramatic moments from this race, including that thrilling finish, and we'll put this race on the Groovy Gauge at the end. But I want to begin this episode by talking about the significance of optics. On the surface, I think today's race was exactly what NASCAR was trying to create when they introduced the 550 horsepower high downforce rules package in 2019. What we saw today was very tight racing. I don't think the race leader ever got more than a half a second away from second place, aside from maybe green flag pit stop cycles. Like, that does not happen outside of Daytona and Talladega. We saw wild restarts that looked like something out of Daytona and Talladega. 3 and 4 wide, drafting down the straightaways, huge runs. We didn't see a bunch of wrecks. There weren't a ton of cautions in this race, but we did see notably 2 significant wrecks. Of course, Austin Dillon getting turned up into the outside wall, which we'll analyze further in a few minutes. And then late in the race when Reddick got loose and jammed up the field and a few guys spun out. And we got a surprise winner at the end. I mean, Ryan Blaney, who won today's race, first time in his career. Actually, he's now won multiple races in a single season. Congrats to him. He's a Penske driver. He's going to be in the playoffs this year. He's not, a shocking winner by any means, but he did not have the best car all day. It was, really Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, William Byron, Kurt Busch, Austin Dillon for a little while, maybe Denny Hamlin towards the end. They seem to have the best cars, so Ryan Blaney swooping in at the 11th hour to steal the win, I think is something NASCAR likes to see from time to time. It gets people talking, it's unpredictable, it's surprising. So like I said at the very beginning of this video, this race passed the eyeball test. Easily. But if I had to guess, most fans who watch on a weekly basis, who watch this show on a daily basis, who like to dig deeper into the data and the juicy stories throughout the week, those who follow racing very, very closely likely saw the many flaws with today's race. Namely, dirty air. I know it's a dirty word to say dirty air, and of course dirty air is prevalent in nearly every form of racing, especially at big tracks when there are high speeds involved. But NASCAR made dirty air all the more prevalent when they introduced these large rear spoilers, especially. Not to mention the sides of the cars, the way side force plays into effect and everything. Point is, aero, whether it's side force, down force, dirty air, clean air, etc., air is such an important part of today's NASCAR racing. And that was on full display today. We saw very close racing up front. Again, the leader never got away by more than a few tenths of a second. But how many times today was the leader passed during green flag racing? And I'm not talking about the first lap after restart, I'm talking about 20 laps into a run. Other than, I think, Austin Dillon when he drove up to second and took a couple shots at the lead, he took a couple stabs at Larson and maybe was clear but chose not to take the chance. Other than that moment, I don't think we saw a single green flag pass for the lead that wasn't because of green flag pit stops or right after a restart. Or I guess at one point Hamlin got passed for lead because he had stayed out, had no fresh tires on, and everyone behind him had at least 2 or 4 fresh tires. He got passed, I think, in stage 1 after the comp yellow, maybe. That's the only green flag pass for the lead I remember seeing today. And when we look at this race and we consider the fact that first to second place was never further apart than about 2 car lengths. The fact that we only had 1 pass for the lead under green that I can remember, maybe there's a second one hidden somewhere that you guys will remind me of, that is troubling to any longtime racing fan who wants to see the drivers hang the cars out and put their full skill, their full ability on full display. It wasn't just the dirty air, the lack of off throttle time, of course. Here at Michigan, it's a big, wide speedway, very little lifting up at the front of the field, mostly full throttle. That's why the leader never got away, because it, in a lot of ways, was like a baby Talladega or a Daytona where you don't lift and you just let the draft pull you through the turns and the straightaways. The point is, Cup Series drivers, when they drive these race cars at this type of track right now, are put into a bit of a box. The cars themselves restrict the drivers. They're too similar in speed to one another, and they're too reliant on downforce that any bit of dirty air, any awkward wake that you get caught in can kill your lap, kill your run, and cause you to lose positions, or at least, at the very least, prevent you from trying to make a pass for position. So the drivers are put into a box at this type of track with this type of rules package. And so while on the surface, we saw very close, what looked to be very competitive racing all day long, if we look a little bit closer, you'll notice that this race wasn't nearly as competitive as it appeared. When Ryan Blaney got the lead on that final restart, thanks largely to Denny Hamlin shoving William Byron way up wide into the first turn, there was virtually no chance of him losing it. Even with Larson and Byron, two Hendrick cars, basically working together, especially on the straightaways, to draft with each other, they still never got close enough to Ryan Blaney to mount any sort of serious challenge in those closing laps. Despite clearly having the better race cars, they could not pass Ryan Blaney because the leader had such a significant aero advantage. So today's race looked gorgeous, looked great on paper, but when we analyze the finer details and we understand exactly what the drivers were dealing with under the helmet, behind the wheel all day long, this race looks a lot less pretty. But now here is the problem. Like I said earlier, I think this race is exactly what NASCAR wants the 550 horsepower package to look like. NASCAR clearly wants to see more of this type of racing at bigger tracks. That's why they're adding banking to Atlanta next year. And I just don't know what to say to that, because this race did pass the eyeball test. I think any new fan that tuned in today likely came away with a positive opinion of NASCAR. They likely enjoyed the race today. But it does bother me knowing that these drivers are put in a pretty constrictive box when they race this package at this type of track. I don't know what's best for business. I know that today's race was very up and down from my perspective, from many of you watching's perspective. I imagine we will see a wide variety of comments down below. When it comes to the future of NASCAR, I think NASCAR is aiming to continue to add more short tracks and road courses to the schedule where aerodynamics do not come into play nearly as frequently. But I think for the few tracks remaining that are still big and fast and wide, like Michigan, I think NASCAR is happy with drafting, with aerodynamics, with close but not necessarily super competitive racing. Maybe it's a fair trade-off because I do love that they're focused on more short tracks and road courses, but I miss the days when, the mile and a half could put on a good competitive show as well. Today was a good show, it just wasn't as competitive as it looked. That was a long tangent that hopefully makes some sense once I edit it down. Most of y'all came here to see my reaction to the finish and the other big moments in this race, so let's get to that. Ryan Blaney gets the win, his second win of the season, a huge momentum boost with the playoffs right around the corner, 5 very important playoff points. But as I said earlier, he was not the dominant car or driver today. Hendrick Motorsports looked very fast, I will say that. Before that 2-week break for the Olympics, the 2 or 3 oval races before that, Hendrick did not look nearly as competitive as they had looked earlier in the year. But today they got back on track. Kyle Larson was fast, Chase Elliott was fast, William Byron was fast. I think all 3 led a significant number of laps. Bowman was a little further back, but not bad either. And the Joe Gibbs racing cars were strong as well. Truex had some damage early on, so he was never really a factor, but Kyle Busch spent some time in the top 5. Christopher Bell had a moment in, I think, early stage 3 where I thought he was going to be a contender for the win. Denny Hamlin was up in the top 5. He restarted second in the outside lane on the final restart, so he was there until the very end as well. So the Joe Gibbs cars and the Hendrick cars were the class of the field here today. Guys like Joey Logano and at the end Ryan Blaney, and occasionally guys like Kurt Busch, Chip Ganassi, or Matt DiBenedetto, Wood Brothers, were also inside the top 5, mixing it up with the front runners. And so was Austin Dillon, 17th in points, came into today 28 points behind Tyler Reddick, his teammate for the final playoff spot. Austin Dillon was on it. Finished 3rd in stage 1, collected 8 important bonus points, and he continued to run well in stage 2. He made a pass on Brad Keselowski for 6th, coming to the line when suddenly everything went wrong. A huge impact with the outside safer barrier. Thankfully, Austin Dillon walked away from the crash and he was checked and released from the infield care center, but that could have been ugly. He made contact with Brad Keselowski down on the apron, just past the green and white checkered flag. A dramatic incident, and it's a tough one to assign blame to. For the record, immediately after the wreck, both Brad Keselowski and Austin Dillon came on their respective radios and apologized for the incident. So both drivers, even Austin Dillon, the guy who got wrecked, took ownership for the incident, at least in some capacity. Brad Keselowski came on the radio and NBCSN played this part. He said, I didn't want to do that. Why'd he come up? I'm sorry. Richard Childress came over Dillon's radio and said, hey, I may be old, but I can still kick his ass, referring to Keselowski. So Richard Childress was obviously unhappy with Brad Keselowski. Austin Dillon, though, apologized to his crew. He took some ownership over the radio, and then during his post-race interview from the Infield Care Center, he said, I was starting to come up off the apron, and I figured by that point he would give me a little more room. But even Austin Dillon did not assign all the blame on Brad Keselowski. He took some ownership for it. Looking at the incident, there are a couple things happening here. Firstly, if we look at this frame by frame, this is just past the start-finish line. Brad Keselowski's pinched him down very, very low. He was trying to side draft. It's a reasonable, normal thing to do at Michigan, but he is holding him very, very tight. In fact, his left side tires are bleeding onto the apron a little bit. But if you look here, frame by frame, tell me which car moves the most. Brad Keselowski's car does not really change his line at that point. He holds his line pretty steady. You can clearly see that the 3 car moves up a few feet pretty quickly. So at the point of contact, it was Austin Dillon who was moving up into Brad Keselowski more than Keselowski moving down into Austin Dillon. But at the same time, I understand where Austin Dillon is coming from. Why was Brad Keselowski bothering to chase him down that aggressively at that point on the racetrack? Like, the stage was over. Keselowski chased him down before they got to start finish line, but it was too close to the finish. He wasn't going to be able to pull himself back in front of Austin Dillon. So it was over aggressive on Brad Keselowski's behalf. It was unnecessary for him to chase Austin Dillon all the way down there. But at the same time, to me, it was Austin Dillon who made the clear movement upwards into Brad Keselowski that actually set off the impact and the wreck. So a racing deal, if you ask me. I'm not going to try and put all the blame on either driver at all, but a scary incident for sure, and major playoff implications attached to it. I mean, at least Austin Dillon did still get the, 5 stage points for finishing 6th, technically, in stage 2, but the DNF certainly hurt. Fast forward a little bit to the end of the race, Tyler Reddick, who, again, came into this race with a 28-point cushion after Dillon wrecked. He just needed to get a solid top 10, top 15. He made a crazy move on the, I think, second to last restart, where he made a 4-wide dive into turn 3. Never was going to work. He immediately got loose or got tight or something, slid up, jacked up Logano, jacked up the rest of the field, set off a chain of events, led to a big wreck and a caution. And actually then on the next restart, I didn't see what happened to Reddick, but he had some sort of damage, cut a tire or something, actually spun out, limped home to the finish. So Reddick did not get a great finish here today. So he did not pad his points lead the way I'm sure he was hoping to after Austin Dillon wrecked. He's 25 points ahead of Austin Dillon heading into Daytona, the final race of the regular season. Still a very good cushion. Dillon's probably going in thinking must win, but Reddick's not nearly as safe as I think he hoped he would be after seeing the 3-car go into the wall. One other notable incident in this race I just want to mention, NASCAR threw a caution for rain with about 21 laps to go in this race. Right before they called it, I saw a couple tweets from people I knew who were at the race who even said that they were feeling some raindrops in the stands. There was showers throughout the day, just barely missing the track. I think NASCAR was right to throw the caution, maybe a little quick in this case. The track didn't look like it was getting too wet, but you could clearly see some raindrops on the onboard cameras. Fast racetrack like Michigan, and of course, given NASCAR's recent mistakes, waiting too long to throw the caution at places like COTA and New Hampshire especially, I'm glad NASCAR chose to be conservative, chose to be cautious, and threw a very quick caution. Track dried up pretty quick, the sun came back out immediately, so no big deal, no big issue. But given the pattern of recent incidents, I'm glad NASCAR was proactive in this case and threw a caution, just to be sure. Taking a look at the top finishers, you still see guys like Byron, Larson, Kurt Busch, who were very fast all day. They still end up with top 5 finishes. Hamlin as well. DiBenedetto a strong 6th. I will say, if you look at Matt DiBenedetto's finishes since Jonathan Hassler took over, they are much improved over where they began this season. Really frustrating if you're a Matt DiBenedetto fan. I think if Jonathan Hassler had been with the team since day one, I think they'd be in the playoffs right now instead of, on the outside looking in, and now Matt DiBenedetto looking for a new contract for next season. So it's still good result. Matt DiBenedetto trying to earn a ride for next season. Chase Elliott had speed. He pit with some of those JGR cars late in the race, so lost his track position, but got back inside the top 10. But there you have it. Those are your top finishers from Michigan today. Just so everyone knows, Austin Dillon ended up 36th after DNFing, and Tyler Reddick finished 29th. I know I've talked about how it was impossible to pass the leader under green today, but I don't want to completely discredit Ryan Blaney. He got a great push from Kyle Busch on that final restart. He got some help from Hamlin running through Byron in the outside lane and getting them way up out wide. But once he got clear to the lead, he did put a good block on William Byron going down the backstretch when they were still getting up to speed, and Byron maybe could have still gotten a run and passed him. He kept Byron behind him then, and credit to him, he didn't make any mistakes those final 6 or 7 laps or whatever. Larson, Byron were trading second second place behind him. They were pushing each other down the straightaways and were keeping him close, keeping him honest. He could have easily overstepped, given that I don't think his car was quite as hooked up as a lot of the guys behind him were. But credit to Ryan Blaney, he kept it steady and he came across the line first, even though Byron did get a pretty good run coming out of turn 4, kept things interesting down to the line there. But credit to Ryan Blaney. Yeah, it was not a dominant win by any means, but a win is a win, and I do want to show him props because he is now a 2-time winner this season. That's all I've been asking of Blaney since he got into the Cup Series. Win more than one race this season. He's in a Penske car. He's a very solid driver. He's a fan favorite. Who doesn't love Ryan Blaney? I just wanted to see him win more. I don't care if they're all flukes, because this is another win that was kind of unexpected, and he's known for winning unexpected races. Photo finishes at super speedways, the Roval in 2018. I don't care if they're all late race wins like this, or stunners, or close finishes. I don't care. A win is a win. I'm happy to see Ryan Blaney stacking some more playoff points here before the postseason begins. Now, let's put this race on the Groovy Gauge and get out of here. I already said my piece about this race. It was very close racing, but I don't feel like it was actually very competitive racing. The drivers are put into a box. When it comes to racing with these cars, this rules package at this type of track, there's just only so much the best drivers can do to get ahead, to make passes, to make moves. They just can't make the same kind of moves they were able to make years ago with different rules packages, with more horsepower, with less downforce, or way back in the day with less side force. There's too many restrictions being put on the drivers these days, and that is frustrating to watch. But if you can get past that and just look at this race surface deep, at least, it was exciting. I mean, the Austin Dillon drama, him crashing after having a really fast car, was dramatic and kind of thrilling. I'm glad he's okay, of course. The leader always had someone in his rear view mirror. Late in the race, of course, those final restarts were chaotic and exciting, I gotta admit. I just hate knowing everything it took to get to this point, to create this product. That's the problem I really have with it. It makes this race really difficult to score. I gotta give this an above average score still, because it was a fun race to watch. First and foremost, NASCAR is a spectator sport. Without spectators, the sport does not exist. And I will say the fun moments outweighed many of the frustrating moments for me today. So I'm gonna give this race a 65% on the Groovy Gauge. Not a fantastic score by any means, but a 65% is a positive score. I don't think NASCAR expects the world from Michigan, but by Michigan standards, today is exactly what I think they were hoping for. This is the best Michigan gets in their opinion. So I think NASCAR would put this thing closer to 100%. I'm going with a 65%, still positive, but not a clear spectacle, amazing positive like I think NASCAR wants us to think it was. Let me know down in the comments. Again, I think this will be a very polarizing race, but let me know your thoughts down below. And that is going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel. We talk NASCAR day in, day out, news, rumors, predictions, race recaps, and much, much more. And as always, a huge thank you to my amazing Patreon supporters. Couldn't do this show without your tremendous support every month. The end of the regular season is right around the corner. I will be at Daytona this coming weekend. Cannot wait for that. Have a fantastic rest of your weekend, y'all. I will see you in the next video.